In the middle of a decisive game against the Lakers, something impossible happened. Curry, the player with cold blood and legendary concentration, completely lost focus. His eyes fixed on a single person in the crowd. Who was this mysterious woman who managed to shake the greatest shooter of all time? What happened next transformed a simple basketball game into one of the most thrilling moments ever seen on an NBA court. The Chase Center in San Francisco was packed that Tuesday night. 52 rounds. Minutes before the game started, Curry was already on the court performing his meticulously planned warm-up ritual. Fans who arrived early watched with admiration as the Warriors' star hit shot after shot with almost supernatural precision. "Steph has that look today," commented Klay Thompson while stretching near the sideline. "It's going to be a good night." But something was different. Between shooting sequences, Curry occasionally seemed distant, as if his mind was elsewhere. For a brief moment, he looked at the still partially empty stands, then shook his head slightly and refocused. "Everything okay?" asked Coach Steve Kerr, approaching discreetly. "Yes, Coach. Just thinking about the game," Curry responded, forcing a smile that didn't completely convince his experienced coach. The truth was that something had been bothering Curry since morning. A strange premonition he couldn't explain. His father Dell had called earlier mentioning news from Charlotte that left him thoughtful. Something about his old school and a tribute to teachers. He hadn't been able to hear all the details because he was leaving for morning practice. When the game finally began, the noise was deafening. Warriors versus Lakers in the final phase of the regular season, with direct implications for playoff positioning. LeBron James was in his usual form, imposing his physicality and leading the Lakers with mastery. On the other side, the Warriors needed the best version of Curry. But that version didn't appear in the first quarter. Curry missed his first 4 shots, committed 2 unnecessary fouls, and seemed a step slower than normal. The crowd was growing restless, and commentators speculated about a possible undisclosed injury. "It's not physical," Draymond Green murmured to Thompson during a timeout. "Something's in his head." End of the first quarter. Lakers 32, Warriors 24. Below average numbers for Curry. Just 3 points, all from free throws. During the brief interval between quarters, Curry sat alone on the bench, breathing deeply and trying to refocus. That's when his gaze wandered around the arena and stopped at a specific face in the 4th row, near the access tunnel. It was like seeing a ghost. "It can't be," he whispered to himself. The woman had short brown hair with gray streaks, thin-framed glasses, and a smile Curry would recognize anywhere. Sarah Jennings, his high school math teacher at Charlotte Christian School, 15 years, ago, the person who had changed his life in ways few knew about. The whistle blew, calling players back to the court. But Curry was momentarily paralyzed. It wasn't just memories of the past, it was the shock of seeing her there, now. The last news he'd had about Sarah was that she had moved to continue difficult treatment for a rare disease. That was more than a decade ago. "Steph, court!" called Kerr, noticing his star's distraction. Curry automatically returned to the game, but his mind remained partially in the stands. Midway through the second quarter, after missing another open shot he would normally make in his sleep, he looked again to where Sarah was sitting. He confirmed it really was her and noticed something he had missed before. Sarah was in a wheelchair. The impact of this realization was like a punch to the stomach. Memories flooded his mind. Sarah standing in the classroom, writing equations on the board, moving energetically among students, always full of life. "Time out!" shouted Steve Kerr, interrupting the game upon realizing his star was clearly shaken. The Warriors gathered on the bench, with Curry visibly distant. "What's happening with you today?" asked Kerr, concern evident in his voice. Curry shook his head, unable to explain the whirlwind of emotions. "I need you to come back to this game, Steph. The team needs you now." "Yes, coach," he responded mechanically, but his eyes continued drifting toward the direction where Sarah was seated. The second quarter ended with the Lakers extending their advantage, 58-43. Curry's worst first half of the season, 7 points, 2 of 11 shooting, 3 turnovers. As he walked to the locker room at halftime, his eyes briefly met Sarah's. She recognized him and waved discreetly. In that moment, 15 years disappeared in an instant, and Curry felt again like the insecure teenager who doubted if he would ever have a chance in professional basketball. Entering the tunnel, he discreetly took something from his pocket, a small piece of white chalk, worn by time, his secret talisman for years. Nobody in the NBA knew about it. Nobody except the young man whom Sarah Jennings had transformed with her unwavering belief in his potential. Charlotte, North Carolina, 2006. Charlotte Christian School was buzzing with the typical energy of teenagers at the beginning of the school year. For freshman Curry, the pressure was particularly intense. Being the son of Del Curry, former NBA player, meant carrying expectations from the first dribble. "That's Del's son, but he doesn't look much like his father, does he?" commented one of the assistant coaches, observing the skinny 14-year-old boy during practice. "Too short, too skinny for basketball." Opinions like that weren't rare. Had heard variations on this theme since he began showing serious interest in the sport. Too small, too weak, no athletic explosion. The comments accumulated like small weights on his shoulders. Advanced math class was one of the few where he felt completely at ease. Numbers made sense to him. They were reliable, predictable in a way that comments about his basketball future were not. It was on a Tuesday in September that Sarah Jennings first entered the classroom. Recently graduated from the University of North Carolina with a master's in applied mathematics, she brought a different energy. It wasn't just her youth, it was something in her eyes that communicated a genuine passion for what she taught. "Mathematics is in everything," she said on the first day of class. "In leaf patterns, in ocean waves, and yes, even in your favorite sport." Looked up from his notebook, suddenly interested. In the following weeks, he began staying after class to ask additional questions. It was during one of these conversations that Sarah noticed numbers scribbled in the margin of S notebook. "Are those statistics?" she asked, curious. "Yes, teacher, I'm tracking my shots in practice," he replied, slightly embarrassed. "I've been calculating my percentages by court zone." Sarah examined the numbers, impressed. "You're applying statistical analysis to your practice? That's advanced." It was the beginning of an unexpected connection. Sarah began showing him how mathematics could be applied to improve his game. Shooting angles, optimal trajectories, probabilistic analysis of game situations. On a rainy October afternoon, Sarah found alone in the ED school gym, shooting balls after everyone had gone home. His eyes were red, and she immediately knew something had happened. "The coach talked to my dad today," he said, without stopping shooting. "Said I should focus on studies because I don't have the physique to play in college." Sarah put her bag on the bench and crossed her arms. "And what do you think about that?" "I don't know. Maybe he's right," replied, deliberately missing the next shot. "Everyone says the same thing." "Let me show you something," said Sarah, grabbing a ball. She quickly drew a diagram in her notebook. Most players focus on playing close to the basket because the conversion rate is higher, right? But look at this. She traced some quick calculations showing how three-point shots, even with a lower percentage of success, could generate more points per possession under certain circumstances. The game is evolving, and people with enough vision to see ahead of the curve are the ones who redefine the rules. She made a significant pause. You have a rare talent for shooting, and basketball is as much mental as physical. That day, something changed for. It wasn't just the encouragement, it was the completely new perspective. Sarah wasn't just being kind. She had shown him, with concrete numbers, a path that others couldn't see. In the following weeks, they developed a routine. 3 times a week, after classes, Sarah helped analyze his practices, refining shooting mechanics based on mathematical principles. She filmed his movements, and together they calculated the ideal angles, necessary force, perfect ball rotation. Most players shoot by instinct, Sarah explained. You're combining instinct with science. It's your competitive advantage. As months passed, began to see significant improvements. His shooting percentages in practice consistently rose. His confidence grew. However, he still struggled to gain recognition from coaches, who remained skeptical about his physique. On a spring afternoon, Sarah arrived at class visibly downcast. Curry immediately noticed something was wrong, but she maintained professionalism throughout the class. When the other students left, she asked him to stay. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice weaker than normal. "I've been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition. I'll need to leave the school to start specialized treatment in Boston." The impact of the news was devastating. Sarah had become much more than a teacher. She was his mentor, his confidant, the person who believed in him when few did. "For how long?" he asked, trying to process the information. "I don't know for certain," she answered honestly. "The doctors say it could be a long treatment." The day before her departure, Sarah gave a gift, a notebook filled with detailed analyses, shooting diagrams, and specific calculations to perfect his game. "Promise me you'll keep working on this," she said, "and promise you'll never let anyone convince you that you can't do something just because you don't fit the traditional mold." Along with the notebook, she gave him a simple piece of chalk. To remember that sometimes we need to erase what others have written about us and create our own story. It was the last time they saw each other. Sarah moved to Boston, and despite promises to stay in touch, communication gradually diminished as her treatment intensified. A year later, learned from other teachers that she had moved again, this time to a specialized treatment center in another state. Kept the notebook and chalk as his most precious treasures. In the following years, as his career began to take off, first at Davidson College, surprising critics, then as a first-round pick in the NBA draft, he frequently revisited Sarah's teachings. The small piece of chalk accompanied him through all stages of his career. From nights of doubt to championship celebrations, it was his constant reminder of the person who saw his potential when others only saw limitations. And now, 15 years later, as he sat in the Warriors' locker room at halftime of a crucial game, Curry held that same chalk, worn by time but loaded with meaning. The woman who had changed his trajectory was there, at Chase Center, and he didn't even know if she was well. The Warriors' locker room was quiet at halftime, a tense atmosphere hanging in the air. The 15-point disadvantage against the Lakers weighed on the team, but the biggest concern was the mental state of their star and leader. "I need to tell you something," Curry finally said, breaking the silence. His teammates approached, curious. "That woman in the 4th row, near the access tunnel, His voice faltered momentarily. "She changed my life when I was just a boy that nobody believed could play professional basketball." Briefly, Curry shared with his teammates who Sarah Jennings was and the impact she had on his career. He didn't go into all the details, but said enough for them to understand why he was shaken. "I haven't seen her in 15 years, he concluded, "and now she's here, in a wheelchair." Draymond Green, known for his strong temperament on court, but also for his unwavering loyalty, put his hand on Curry's shoulder. "Then let's give her a show she'll never forget." When the third quarter began, something had changed in Curry. It wasn't just determination. It was a clarity of purpose that transcended the simple desire to win a basketball game. On his first possession, Curry hit a three-pointer from well beyond the line. On the next play, another. The crowd, which had been apprehensive, began coming back to life. "Curry is coming back into the game!" exclaimed the national broadcast announcer. 2 consecutive shots after a first half to forget. Between plays, Curry's eyes occasionally found Sarah in the audience. Each time this happened, a new wave of determination washed over him. It wasn't just a game now. It was a demonstration of the legacy she had helped build. After converting his 4th consecutive shot, Curry made a subtle gesture that nobody in the arena understood. He quickly touched his wrist where he would normally wear a wristband. It was a signal for Sarah, a reference to the chalk she had given him years ago, and that was now safely in his uniform pocket. From the stands, Sarah recognized the gesture. Silent tears ran down her face as she watched her former student demonstrate the mathematical perfection they had studied together so many years before. The Warriors' comeback in the third quarter was spectacular. From 15 points behind, they went on to lead by 3 at the end of the period. Curry, who had scored only 7 points in the first half, exploded for 23 points in the third quarter alone, including 7 three-pointers. "I've never seen anything like this," commented an ESPN analyst. "It's as if someone had flipped a switch. Curry is playing at a completely different level." During a timeout early in the last quarter, Curry noticed movement in the area where Sarah was seated. A nurse approached her, checking something. For a moment, a look of pain crossed Sarah's face, and she needed to take some medication. "Is everything okay?" asked Thompson, noticing that Curry had lost focus on the coach's talk. "She's not well," Curry responded quietly. "I need to finish this game." The final minutes of the match transformed into one of the most memorable performances of Curry's career. Each shot seemed predestined to go in. Each pass had surgical precision. He played as if every second was precious, not just for the game's outcome, but for something much greater. With 30 seconds on the clock and the score tied at 112, the Warriors gained final possession. Everyone in the gym knew who would get the ball. "Curry, isolated against LeBron," narrated the commentator, tension evident in his voice. The clock winding down, 10 seconds, made 2 crossovers, created space, and shot from a distance that would seem absurd for any other player. As the ball traced its perfect trajectory toward the basket, time seemed to slow down. "It's good! Curry at the buzzer! Warriors win!" The arena exploded in frantic celebration. While his teammates ran to hug him, Curry kept his eyes fixed on Sarah, who was applauding with tears in her eyes. Curry, a forgettable first half and a historic second half, approached the court reporter after the game. What changed at halftime? For a moment, considered sharing the whole story, talking about the math teacher who had seen potential in him when others didn't, about how she had used numbers and science to help him develop the playing style that would revolutionize the NBA. But some stories are too deep to be shared in a post-game interview. "Sometimes you play for something bigger than basketball," he responded simply. Today, I was playing for the person who saw what nobody else could see. Without waiting for more questions, Curry left the reporter confused and walked away, ignoring his teammates' celebrations. There was something much more important to do. Curry moved quickly through the corridors of Chase Center, still in his sweat-soaked uniform. Normally, he would stay for the celebration with teammates, especially after such a dramatic victory against the Lakers. But this night was different. Did you see a woman in a wheelchair, brown hair with gray streaks, near the access tunnel? He asked one of the security guards. Yes, Mr. Curry. A nurse took her to the VIP waiting area a few minutes ago, replied the guard, a bit confused by the star's urgency. Curry continued down the hallway, his heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the 47 points he had just scored. When he reached the VIP area, he saw Sarah talking quietly with her nurse. Time had left its marks. The once completely brown hair was now significantly gray. The lines on her face told stories of years of struggle against disease. But her eyes, those same eyes that had seen potential in a skinny boy from Charlotte, remained alive and bright. For a moment, simply stood there, absorbing the reality of the reunion. Sarah was the first to speak. I think you exceeded all my calculations, she said with a weak but genuine smile. Curry approached and knelt beside the wheelchair, getting to eye level with her. It was a gesture of respect, not pity, an acknowledgement of equality between master and student. How are you here? He asked, his voice almost a whisper. After all these years. My nephew works for the Warriors in administration, she explained. When he learned that She hesitated briefly. That my time is becoming limited, he arranged everything. It was my last wish to see you play in person. The frankness of the statement hit Curry like a physical blow. Your time is limited? Sarah nodded calmly. The disease has progressed more than we expected. The doctors talk about months, maybe weeks. Why didn't you reach out to me before? I could have helped, found specialists, anything. Sarah smiled, that same serene smile that calmed an anxious teenager 15 years before. And missed the chance to see how much you accomplished on your own? I always knew you didn't need me. You just needed someone to believe in you enough for you to start believing in yourself. Curry shook his head, emotion visible on his face. You're wrong. I did need you, and I still do. He took from his pocket the small piece of chalk, now worn and almost unrecognizable after so many years. This has been with me in every game. Every shot I've made in my career has had a bit of your teachings. Sarah touched the chalk, her eyes watering. You kept this all this time? It's my lucky charm. But it's not just superstition. It's a constant reminder that the mathematics behind the perfect shot you taught me worked. He paused, gathering courage. Sarah, I never had the chance to really thank you. You changed the game of basketball through me. All these three-pointers, all this revolution in the sport, it started in that classroom in Charlotte. The nurse discreetly moved away, giving them privacy. For almost an hour, teacher and student talked, recovering lost years. Sarah told about her battle against the disease, the remissions and relapses. Curry talked about championships, injuries, doubts he faced. You know what makes me most proud of you? Sarah asked at one point. It's not the records or the rings. It's seeing how you remained humble, how you continued working on fundamentals, how you never forgot your roots. Curry took a deep breath, making a decision. Tomorrow, we don't have a game. Will you stay in town? My flight back to Portland is late afternoon, she replied. I have something to show you in the morning, if you have the strength for it. The next morning, a public school in Oakland received unexpected visitors. Curry arrived discreetly through the back, accompanied by Sarah in her wheelchair and some executives from the Curry Foundation. The students, gathered in the gym for what they thought was just an announcement from the administration, exploded in screams when they saw the Warriors' star enter. When the excitement subsided, Curry took the microphone. "I'm here today to announce something special," he began. "The creation of the Sarah Jennings Scholarship, a program that will identify young athletes with academic talent in mathematics and sciences, providing full scholarships to top-tier universities." He paused, looking at Sarah, who couldn't contain her tears. "Most of you don't know this extraordinary woman, but if you've ever seen me shoot a basketball, you've seen her impact." Curry went on to briefly explain how Sarah had used advanced mathematics to help develop the shooting style that revolutionized the sport. "Additionally, I'm personally donating $5 million for research on the autoimmune disease she's fighting." The audience applauded enthusiastically, but the most significant moment came afterward, when students had the opportunity to meet Sarah personally. For many teenagers, especially girls interested in STEM careers, seeing a woman being credited for her mathematical contribution to sports was deeply inspiring. Later, Curry took Sarah to see the Warriors Training Center, where he showed her the advanced analysis systems the team now used, systems that, in many ways, were sophisticated evolutions of the basic principles she had taught him on a school court in Charlotte years before. "Look at this," he said, showing her a heat map of his shots. "Remember when we did this manually in your notebook? Now we have artificial intelligence calculating optimal trajectories and ideal angles. But the principles are exactly the same as what you taught me." In the late afternoon, when it was time for Sarah to leave for the airport, there was a silence loaded with meaning. Both knew it would probably be the last time they would see each other. "You know I'm not good with goodbyes," Sarah finally said, "so I'll just say what I've always known. You were my most brilliant student, not for the shots you made, but for the person you became." Curry swallowed the lump in his throat. "And you were much more than a teacher. You were the first person to truly see who I could become." Before Sarah departed, placed in her hands a dyed small case. Inside was a tiny fragment of the original chalk, preserved in transparent resin and transformed into a pendant. "So that a part of our story is always with you," he said. "And this," he continued, handing her an envelope, "is a permanent invitation for my family. When," he hesitated, "when the time comes, I want your nephews to know they are part of the Curry family forever." Sarah nodded silently, words becoming unnecessary after so many years. 3 weeks later, during a game against the Celtics, Curry received news that Sarah had passed away peacefully in Portland, surrounded by family. That night, in a performance that would go down in history, he broke the NBA record for three-pointers in a single game. At the end of the match, when asked about his visible dedication, Curry finally shared with the world the complete story of the math teacher who had helped revolutionize basketball. On his wrist, a new piece of tape bore the initials SJ and a small mathematical equation, the formula for the perfect shot they had developed together so many years ago. In the following week, universities and high schools across the country reported a significant increase in interest for courses combining mathematics and sports. The Sarah Jennings effect, as it was called by the media, inspired a new generation of young people to see the science behind the game. In Charlotte, at Curry's old school, an applied mathematics laboratory was named after Sarah. At the ED inauguration, a simple plaque contained just one phrase: "Some champions are shaped not only on courts, but also in classrooms, and in moments that nobody sees.